There was high pressured, high ticket sales, comes with all the stereotypical things you would expect, the drug abuse, the partying, the taking clients out for, wild, crazy fueled nights. I was facing some serious charges. And so it was rehab after dozens, probably a dozen rather, attempts to try to quit on my own.
Welcome to Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. I'm James Short, and this show dives into the real stories behind the agents and the leaders shaping our industry. No polished highlight reels, just honest conversations about what's working, what's not, and how they're building businesses that actually grow. Each episode, I sit down with someone in the trenches, top performers, rising leaders, business owners who've cracked the code and others still figuring it out. We unpack the wins, the failures, the habits, and the lessons you can put to work straight away. Before we dive in, can I ask a favor? And please subscribe or follow on the platform you're listening or watching this. The more we grow, the bigger impact we can have together. And thank you. Let's get started. Welcome back to another edition, and we have an amazing guest with us today, Justin Lund, a business systems architect who helps founders build scalable, profit-driven businesses that don't own their lives. I'm excited to go deep here. Woohoo! His path was messy. He overcame addiction, scaled companies to near 9-figure revenues, then lost everything to embezzlement and brutal legal battles. Wow. Those trials shaped the Freedom Flywheel method, fusing personal mastery with battle-tested systems. Today, he empowers entrepreneurs to create thriving, founder-optional companies, no mythical saviors required. When he's not coaching or speaking, he's traveling with his family, always learning and always growing. Check out his website, propelyour.com. Honor and a privilege to have him on the show today. Justin, mate, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, James. I'm happy to be here.
Fantastic. So many rabbit holes we're going to go down, so much to cover today. But
Okay.
But let's go back to those beginnings of what was that like? How did you get there? What were those key things around going through building the companies, the legal battles, the addiction prior? Like, share with us that story of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, you bet. I got married a little quicker than we'd planned. We had a baby on the way, so we kind of sped up some of those plans. And my wife my new bride now with a baby on the way, really wanted some stability and was looking for some of that consistency. And I've just always been kind of a free spirit and entrepreneurial. And so I was in sales, putting myself through college. And I thought, if I could just make enough money in sales, then I can do a lot better there. That's probably what will make her feel stable. So I really just tried to go all in on sales. I liked it. I like psychology. I like the way people think and just digging. I've always been a fan of like the Tony Robbins, the personal development stuff. So it was a natural fit. But the environment there was not good. It was toxic. There was high pressured, high ticket sales, comes with all the stereotypical things you would expect, the drug abuse, the partying, the taking clients out for, wild, crazy fueled nights. And so that wasn't a good environment for me. And that's how I got into addiction. My drug of choice in those days was pain pills. I thought, how bad could it be if a doctor prescribes it, right? Well, like the worst. That's about as bad as it gets. That landed me in some legal trouble I got in trouble with the law after a couple of arrests of having prescriptions that didn't belong to me and different things like that. I was facing some serious charges. And so it was rehab after dozens, probably a dozen rather, attempts to try to quit on my own. That stuff is just so toxic and insidious, and I just couldn't do it. So here I was facing potential prison time, and I had 2 babies now at the time, a 2-year-old and a newborn-ish. And I'm looking at all this serious stuff in my life just kind of unraveling and falling apart. And that's when the only option or path forward was rehab. And I decided again to go just all in there. And I thought, if there's a way to beat it, I have to be in a place like this. And I hope I can. I didn't know that I could, but that was kind of the beginning. That's where I began to learn the power of frameworks. A lot of that Tony Robbins and psychology stuff started coming in. I'm like, hey, I'm familiar with this. But
Yeah,
there
good.
was a missing piece that I hadn't heard of before that I began to learn about there. And that's really what started to pave the way for my steps ahead.
Wow, fantastic. What a journey so far. And the biggest takeaways and the biggest lessons, and what was that missing piece for you that you then go, that was what I needed right now?
Yeah, great question. A lot of the things that I had been reading and that I liked to study prior to that, we're always talking about manifest this and affirm affirmations for that. And I like that. And I still to this day believe heavily and strongly in those things. But what I learned in rehab and one of those missing puzzle pieces was you do that, but you also plan for your worst day too. So in rehab, you make what's called a transition plan, right? As you begin, you go through the initial process, and as you are kind of on the, I guess you could say the tail end of it, kind of you're getting ready to depart and go back into the real world. They start to hit you with some truths that you're not necessarily prepared for. I remember I was about 4 weeks into it, and I mean, I felt like Superman. I'm
Yep.
sober. These chemicals are working their way through my system. My brain begins to function. I would wake up, and every day, James, I would think, no, it surprised me that I felt better than the day before, and then the next day
Wow.
was the same thing, and it just kept happening. And so here I'm just thinking I'm on top of the world. This is going to be great. And they're like, we need to break some bad news to you. Okay. Like you've got to think now a month ago when you left all these people that you left, because, I've got no contact with all these people. I'm in this solitary place. Like they don't really remember you feeling as good as you feel today. I was like, oh yeah. I just got out of jail. I mean, I was wearing a orange jumpsuit. So and I was like, oh, and like all this weight came down on my shoulders. I'm like, oh yeah, they're gonna be pissed. They're like, yeah, they're kind of gonna be pissed. So they helped me plan for that. And I said, now that's part of what we're going to be focusing on next is and they taught me how to be prepared for the people that I had treated poorly to kind of receive some of that almost retaliatory sort of treatment back, and that's part of the forgiveness and grieving process is that they're not going to trust me and they're going to think suspiciously of me. And I thought, "Oh, okay." So they armed me for that. And had I not been prepared for that, I mean, I'd have been smoked because sure, I mean,
Totally.
as soon as I got out of there, it came on hard and heavy and it was not
Wow.
a walk in the park.
Okay.
So without those tools and without some of those missing pieces, I would not be here today for sure.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And I guess there's so many beautiful metaphors taking from that, even though it would have been a challenging journey, but to take a lot of those metaphors and those frameworks into building businesses, building your own personal framework, building your own life forward. Because so often we go in, and particularly as the start of the new year, we set these amazing goals and everything's rosy glass,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
colored glasses, but we've got to look at those blind spots. We've got to look at those things of those transition plans, as you just said, of like looking at who's going to be affected by this concept. Have you used that into what you're building today? Have you used that multiple times in the past? Share that.
100%, 100%. And I love your question and reference to like New Year's and resolutions because that's what people get wrong. My brother came over to my house last year at New Year's and he's had a drinking problem for a while, and he drinks too much. And he came over like, this year, and he started rattling off about all these things. And immediately I'm like, oh, you're smoked, man. Like you're just because he had told me within 30 seconds 27 things that he was going to resolve to do this year. And I just knew that's way too much. First of all, for you, I mean, let's start with two. Two might be aggressive. If we just went with one, it would be in good shape. But he had 27 things, and what that does, and this is what it's something else I learned from rehab, and I absolutely apply it to business. I apply it in my coaching daily to my clients. But that long list of things actually serves. In rehab, we called it the beast. Okay, so we were given this assignment one day to create sort of a persona of what this dark energy that kind of pulls us away and has us to do really dumb shit, like do drugs when we have these two cute, perfect little babies that rely on us. Like, you can't just do that. You have to have a real, like, there's got to be some problems going on there. So there's this beast that if you draw, the exercise was you draw it out, you give it a name, you give it shapes and colors and different things. And that way you can kind of talk to that thing. And you can be like, hey, no, not today. You're not getting the better of me. And that was a great exercise. And it showed me, along with biting off more than you could chew, so to speak, that like my brother came over with 27 things to do. Like I could see it on January 2nd that he was already laying the foundation and the groundwork for what was going to be his excuse on February 1st to go ahead and just say, screw it.
Yep.
I've already messed up all these things. I'm just going to, and then
What's
you
the
throw
point?
everything out. Yeah. What's the point? It's the effort mode, right? Yeah, totally. So that is a big, big deal. And a lot of people do that. So with some of my goal setting and resolution process, my personal one that I like to teach people is I start the new year doing the same thing, either in December or January. My wife and I go away for about a week and we lay out our whole year. I got this big calendar. It's about this wide, and we stick it on the wall of the hotel room where we're at. And we start coloring in dates that are important and just planning the year and having a good time. That process is really important to get our year lined up on the right path. In January, what's going to happen next September? So we build in the first thing we color into our annual plans is our quarterly retreats for 2 to 3 days, 4 times a year. Wow. So up goes the calendar. We're like, okay, March, let's do the quarterly retreat here. That doesn't conflict with any of the kids' schedules or any of this and this. And so building in kind of that transition plan that, hey, life's going to happen. It's going to come our way. We're going to follow our plan. But when we get to April 1st and we go to our first quarterly getaway, that's where we can pivot. We can look at how the first quarter is going. We'll make some transitions if we need to. And every quarter, I'm thinking back, like almost every quarter, I think it's been one of attrition. Like we're taking things off the list because we are always biting off more than we can chew. It's like, So it's either defer till next quarter or take it off. We'll look at it in the next year. So we keep a list, and that just keeps us, like doing this so we can keep like pivoting and hitting the right notes. But otherwise, we'd get into effort mode,
1,000%. I love that because it's so important to have those quarterly check-ins, those quarterly retreats, because life is busy. We've got multiple plates that you're spinning, kids, family, work, kids, everything around that as well. But without that guidance, right? Without that planner, it's just like you're so reactive, and it's just like you're then being led, and that's where the energy gets zapped rather than taking control. And we can't control everything, but having that proactive approach that you guys do, absolutely, I love it. Absolutely fantastic. And talk to me about the entrepreneurial journey, the business journey that you've been on. What has that been like? And obviously you're leaning towards now your coaching and training and speaking and things like that. How has that journey shaped you, and what has that been like?
Yeah. So after getting out of rehab and having some of these frameworks and that was the beginning, like one of the key few ingredients that led me down a path that began to become successful. Because I had frameworks now. It wasn't just wing it. It wasn't just day to day. It wasn't whatever comes at me, I'll react to. It was kind of creating some things that starting in my mind, the frameworks of my mind, that I could lay out some of these plans. And I just started stacking bricks, one on top of another. And it started out, I had nothing. I came out of rehab. I'd lost the house, the cars, moved into my mom's house. My wife and I slept on the floor of a 2-bedroom house with our 2 babies and my mother. And it was in those conditions that I had a laptop in the garage with a blanket around my legs, and I started my first business there. Well, my first successful business. I'd had a few side hustles and things, but this I was all in on. And that's one of the things I learned in rehab. One of those reasons that I was drawn into some of that dumb behavior of doing drugs is that I was doing things that there was a cognitive dissonance in my mind, right? I felt like I'm capable of achieving more, and I have a higher calling, but yet what I do every day is kind of down here. And so you either need to reconcile that or you do dumb shit to numb that, right? To make that go
Very
away.
interesting. Yeah.
So that was kind of the cause. So that's one of the key things that I learned there, that if I could be true, and that's the counselor, this guy, Dr. Bob, said, tattoo this on the inside of your eyeballs, like be true to thyself and to thine own self be true. Like, that Shakespeare chorus, like that's your mantra. Because if you stay true to you, you'll be fine. You'll never be back here again. But if you violate that, you're fucked. Like it's over for you. So that was kind of when I went out. All right, I got to start a business. I got to figure out what I'm going to do, and I'm going to be true to that. And it was 6 months sleeping on the floor, and it was not good. I mean, wife was not happy with that. It was not a great situation. But then started to get a few wins, and I got to the point where I was about a year and a half in. I was doing really well. I was proud of myself. I paid off all the debt, all the credit cards, all the stupid behavior. I was beginning to see some signs of trust from my spouse again, and starting to look like a normal contributing member of society, But I was working all the time to get there. It was still just me by myself. But I was bringing in a couple $100,000 a year profit. So I thought, this is more than I thought I would make. This is good. And then I thought I was going to tone it down just a little bit because I wanted more time with my kids. I was working sometimes 20 hours in a day. I mean, it was a lot. And 7 days a week, every day, every week. And most days, not 20 hours. I mean, that's kind of bananas. But there were days that I would have to do that. And I wanted more time with the kids. So I remember calling some clients and saying, hey, I'm just going to kind of tone it down a little bit and maybe just dial back a little over. And they unequivocally, without hesitation, said, you're fired. Whoa, hold up. Wait. They didn't want to slow down. They wanted to grow faster, right?
Yeah.
And so I was faced with this I was backed into a corner. I didn't really know what to do. I knew that I didn't have more gas in the tank. I couldn't give more. I was already at the end of my rope, but my clients were asking for more and demanding I did not give less. So I thought, okay, what do I do? And that's when I called somebody that I could see further up the mountain than me, 20 years my senior. And I'd seen he had created a lot of success for himself, a lot of successful businesses. And I remember calling him on, I don't know if it was a Wednesday or a Thursday. I called him just out of the blue and I'm like, hey, I got this business. He picked up the phone, first of all. And I was like, okay. I kind of was surprised by that, but I hadn't talked to him in years. He was a friend of the family. And so anyway, I started talking to him straight away. And I'm like, I got this business. It's going well. My personal issues are, a year and a half behind me. Like I'm starting to put things back together, but I just don't know how to scale. I don't know where to go from here. And I just wondered, like, if you could give me some guidance. And he's like, sure. Yeah. Do you want to go to lunch? I'm like, yeah, what works for you? And he's like, well, can you go like right now? I hung up the phone and I made plans to meet with him. And I just thought, how the hell does this guy who's probably, worth millions and millions of dollars and bringing in millions of dollars with no notice, he could just go to lunch. And that just fascinated me. I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, oh, I think I can. Let me check my schedule. Let me move this. And I'm like, who am I? This is crazy. So I went to lunch with him. I kind of laid out what the business was, what I was struggling with, some of the problems, what I didn't know how to do. And we started working together and making a plan. And from there, like, he taught me how, like, he was a great mentor to me. Taught me how, like, I remember getting an assistant. He started helping me to see where my time was going. And he showed me how to measure my time and how many hours was going into just responding to emails. So back then, we didn't have Whisperflow and ChatGPT and all this great stuff that we do now. But I got an MP3 recorder. I was just talking about this with one of my guys today. And I would sit down in my email inbox and I would record responses to 100 emails. And I'd hand the recorder to that guy. And I'd walk away and go do other stuff. So I could do my emails in an hour instead of 4 hours. I bought back 3 hours, right? And then there was more and more stuff like that. And as I did that, within the next year, we had a team of about 30 people, I think. We had gone from several $100,000 of profit, probably doing just over $1 million and some change gross top line revenue. The next year and a half made it to about 11. Wow. And then and then 36, 38, something just shy of 40. We just kept stacking. Within a couple more years, we were at about 90 some odd million there was about 5 different entities. So combined with a team of just under 100 people. And so we just grew and grew and grew. And it was those systems, it was the frameworks that got me started. a lot of hustle and grit in the beginning, but I'm not that smart, and I'm grateful for guys like him and things that I learned from those people in rehab that taught me how to instill frameworks and repeatability into a process that I could get consistent results without me always being there.
Yeah, wow. I love that. That's such an inspiring journey and story. Looking back at that time, what would be some, I guess, maybe one, two, or even three key lessons that you took away that you, like what you did with that counselor said, those key lessons around truth. But for you around business, what have been those key lessons that if you were to share that with someone watching or listening to this around going from everything doing yourself to then that
Mhm.
scaling process, what would that be?
I think the awareness is probably number one. And by that, I mean just the awareness of where does your time go, an awareness of how much is your time worth. It's making me think of one of my clients recently. I was trying to help her develop a sense of awareness. She thought I've got 6 or 7 employees or something, and she was doing all kind of their jobs and complaining about them and not growing and having a hard time even making payroll, but have all these people that she was supporting and didn't really want, she felt the responsibility of their families too. And nothing was landing for her until I took top line revenue, which she was all biz dev was her, right? So I said, okay, you're responsible for all the revenue, right? She said, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I said, okay, top line divided by the number of hours in a year that you would work full time, your hourly rate is $400 an hour. And she went, wait, do that math again. So it's okay. Here's your financials, okay? Top line revenue. I'm going to take this gross revenue, gross margin, even after cost of goods sold. This is what your time is worth because you're the one that's responsible for all of this revenue. She's like, okay, with you so far. Now, there's 2,080 hours in a full-time work year if you work 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. So let's divide that by 2080, and your rate is just over $400. And she was just like, wow, are you serious? I said, okay, so let's think about what you did last week. When you were cleaning the office on a Saturday for 4 hours and you're taking out garbages, she never did that again. Like that exercise just clicked. So back to your question, I think that's one of the most important things. I remember when I learned that lesson too. And I was just writing something about this yesterday because it was a team meeting of almost 50 people. And it was my assistant who did the same thing to me. I'm having these meetings, all hands meetings twice a week, right? And it went from 30 minutes to over the next 3 or 4 months, turned into about 90 minutes. And I'm getting frustrated and I'm complaining to him. I'm like, nobody gets it. What's the deal? Why is it? Things are getting longer. I swear we're getting dumber. What's the problem? And it's the crazy part was when he came back the next day and he's like, oh, hey, I grabbed something. He was like a ninja. Right? This guy was sweet. He came back with a little slip of paper. He's like, oh, I just sat on with accounting and I thought I'd show you this is what your payroll costs are for that meeting. And it was $1,600, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like 50 cents per second that was costing me. So I was like, wait, what? So I think it was like $3,000 or something for an hour and a half meeting. It's $4,000. And I was like, you are shitting me. I was like, that's not your time either. That's just, that's what you are paying for before taxes, before benefits, before rent, before anything else. It's just labor dollars. I was like, screw those meetings, man. We're not doing that anymore. And it just made you aware. Like before that though, I would talk and I would teach, and teaching feels good. It's a trick. Like it's kind of a trap because it makes us feel good. It feeds that sense of ego that we're helping somebody. We're teaching them how to do their job better. We're just pouring into them. But without a system, without repetition, with something that can be repeated and be replicated without you, you're not teaching. You're giving your ego a stroke, and you're probably writing a really big check to do it.
Love that point. So valuable because we do get into that cycle. We do get into that process. Oh, now this is going to be a value. This is going to be a value. But when you put a dollar terms to it, it's like, well, what's that ROI? It's like, and we're still doing this same teaching months down the track and it hasn't been implemented. What are we doing? So yeah. I love that self-awareness and that dollar time factor. Where is a few?
Oh, sorry. I was
Hey,
just going
go,
to
go.
mention that one that kind of parlays into the next lesson that I think is
Yep.
really important, which is to inspect the instructions instead of the outcome. A
Ooh.
lot of founders, and this is what got me in that meeting to just keep running my, you yap it on. This is what gets a lot of the people that I coach. I work with a lot of guys in the trades business in real estate. They're building houses, renovating houses. They look at the finished product and that's what they go inspect. That's what we're used to. Like, oh wait, that paint's off, and oh, let me take the blue tape and I'll put little things here where you need to touch up and do things. That's great for a painter for touch up, but that really sucks if you're training a team because you're not doing anything to affect what they're going to do next time. We think as founders that we are. So talking more is going to solve the problem. It does not. But if you inspect the instructions, so you go look at the house, if we're using that metaphor, you go look at the house and you're like, we have problems here. Stop, leave the house, go get the instructions that your people followed. And if there isn't any, that's your first sign. Like, make some instructions. And if there is instructions, really inspect, like, okay, they missed that entirely. Oh, it's not in the instructions. Do the corrections there, not with the people. Then you can say, hey guys, I was going over the instructions. I realized I made some mistakes when I handed these to you last week. Here's an updated version. Let me know if you have questions. So much more effective, so much faster, so much cheaper, and probably so much more appreciated than somebody getting their ass chewed that you're like, yeah, I can't believe that,
Totally, totally. And there's so many lessons in that. It's one, then coming back to the owner, the founder, the manager to take responsibility over those processes of like,
Yeah.
I have missed that, so I'm sorry. Here's the updated versions, rather than blaming the team where they missed. Well, they only did what they were following. And I
Yep.
think the other aspect of that is the ability to. This is why I use something very similar in goal achievement. Let's focus on the process, not necessarily the outcome. When you, as you said, like, would you follow the process, the finished product will be there. The goals achieved will be there. And I think particularly as we move into a new year, as coming back to that is that we get so fixated on the goal, but what's that process that we need to follow in order to achieve that? And I love that analogy of that house building. It's so gold, so gold.
I love how you just said that too. The process over the goal. And another way of saying systems over goals. And I say that all the time because people tell me what their goals are. And I say, what are you going to do to achieve that? And they're like, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing. So it's either one of two things, James. I've had people say, like, often physical fitness comes into the goals somewhere, usually around resolutions too. And so it's like, I'm going to do this with the business, this with the business, this with the business. I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to drop. Okay, what's your fitness goal? How are you going to do that? And so I'll either have no plan, I don't know if it's 50-50, but there's no plan, or I'm going to eat salad every day. I'm going to do this and this. I'm going to work out 6 times a day. I'm going to do these things. And I'm like, okay, so that's back to the 27 biting off more than you can chew list. Both of those will fail. But if you can get something where you have a system, so if your goal is physical fitness and you make that a SMART goal, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound, you hit all those check marks so that you have specificity built into the goal itself. Now you got to focus on the system that you're going to use to get there. So people think systems are complicated, but it's an acronym. Save yourself time, energy, money. System, anything. I wanted to get in shape a few years ago. The first system that I put in place was I recognize I'm making decisions in the morning at 5 o'clock, which is not a great time for me to make decisions. I get up and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. And then I'm thinking, am I going to go to the gym today? That's not the greatest time for me to make that decision, If I make that decision the night before, so my first system was I set my gym clothes next to my toothbrush. So I get up, I stumble into the bathroom and I'm half asleep still. There's my toothbrush. There's my shorts and t-shirt. It's like, I put them both on. I take care of it. And I'm like, I'm going to the gym, I guess. I'm wearing all the clothes for it, right? And that I can eliminate some of the, so I save myself time, energy, or money.
So good. So good. So good. Justin, on the show, we have our 60-second quiz to find out a little bit more about our guests. So you willing to play?
Sure. Let's give it a
Cool.
shot.
Here we go. Favorite movie?
Ooh, Jason Bourne.
Which one?
Probably the OG, the first one.
Love it.
Yeah.
Favorite food?
Hmm. Well, right now it's steak because I'm eating very lean, so it's a very lean steak, like a fillet. But if I could just go all out, like kind of like a pizza or something like that, because I don't get that very often these days with my diet.
Love it. Favorite holiday destination?
Oh, I like the beach. I like sand and sun.
Nice. What's your morning routine?
Get up and meditate. After meditation, I do about 20 minutes of cardio to get warmed up, get my body moving, and then I do some priming. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yes.
that's kind of like okay. And then I get into priming and some gratitude exercise, and then I'm off.
Beautiful. And do you have an evening routine?
Yes, I sit in the hot tub, and usually I'm alone for that. Sit in the hot tub and just kind of decompress. I may have my phone or screens on for the first 5 minutes of it, and then I put that away and I just sit and relax and enjoy, and that kind of gets me calmed down, gets my body temperature up, and then I get ready for bed.
Love it. Beautiful. And do you have a biggest regret?
Hmm. I don't know. Everything in the past seems to be it was there for a reason. I can't undo it. So I don't know that regret is the right word, but my nephew asked me in the gym. He sees me in the gym and he's got his AirPods in and he comes over to me. He's like, "Oh, hey, real quick. What do you think I should do to be successful?" So I'm like, "Bro, that's more than just a
Loaded.
pop an AirPod out kind of question. You know what I'm saying?" So I thought about it for a minute, but then I went back to him like, "Take your fucking AirPods out. Come on." And I said, "This is the thing," because he's 22 years old. And I said, "This is what you need to do is remember the power of consistency.
Mm.
Like do the same shit day after day after day, whether it's save $5 a day, 5% of your check, but don't discount. I was always looking for that big thing, the next big win. And man, consistency is where it's at. You just do little things over and over and over again. That's freaking superpower right there."
Love it. Do you have a most embarrassing moment?
Hmm. I'm sure there's plenty of those. I've embarrassed myself a lot. I think probably one of the ones most recently is I told you before the show that I lived in New England. So after I exited a few businesses, I moved away with my kids after these really kind of busy times. And then I just focused on hanging out with my kids. I didn't do much. Like I picked them up from school. I took them to school every day for 12 years. I think there was two or three times in that 12 years that my wife did the carpooling, but otherwise it was me. So that was a cool time. There was some drawbacks of it, but there's some great opportunities I had to be with my kids. Um, then I came out of that phase. My kids are older, and I want to kind of share some of my message. And the embarrassing part was trying to get on social media. That I'd never been on Instagram ever as a consumer. And now I'm trying to like make videos and talk like, "Hi guys," like that was terrifying and embarrassing.
Fantastic. If you were to choose five inspirational people to have dinner with, they could be dead or alive, who would they be?
Oh man, you're getting harder on these are getting deeper and harder. I was hoping they'd get easy. Um, let's see. I don't know. There's people like Napoleon Hill, Earl Nightingale, Jesus. I'd like to go with Jesus. That'd be pretty rad. Um, yeah, my dad, he's been passed away for um, 27, 26 years now. So it'd be cool to have dinner with him again. So what do we got? Four?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe let's stick with those four for now.
Nice. Fantastic. If you were president for the day, what's one thing that you would change?
Oh, man. These are getting much harder. Um, boy, I don't know. I'm kind of apolitical. I try not to even get involved, which is probably not the best thing because people need to get involved, but it's so toxic. The climate is so toxic. Um, if there was this is a Pollyanna answer, okay, but my belief is if there was a way that I could try to help bring people back to morals and values instead of laws and legislation, that's what I would try to enact if I were in the highest
Beautiful.
seat of the land. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. So what's on the horizon? What's maybe one or two things that you're looking forward to as we come into 2026?
I'm looking forward to working with more founders. One of my goals that I have here with my little team is we want to reach 50,000 business owners. We want to, there's lessons that I've learned that are very, very costly. There's things I've done that have cost me millions of dollars. And there's high leverage. I had a conversation with a business owner the other day, and just a quick 25 minutes swung the tax implications for their year from a $40,000 tax owed, the approximation, to getting a refund of around $20,000.
Wow.
So we're talking about a $60,000 US dollar gain difference with the conversation that took 20 minutes. And so there's when those kind of things happen, like that's what I really want to focus on next year is how can I reach more people? I can't do that one-to-one with 50,000 people. That's possible. But if I can put together videos or come on shows like this and have people reach out and figure out ways that, if a video can help them get a tax break or get 8 hours back in their work week, that's kind of my focus with founders that I coach. First win, let's get you 8 hours back in your day, because if that's measurable, you feel an extra work day. That's big. So in fact, I've got a founder freedom playbook that I start my clients with, that if anybody here wants that, anybody listening, just come over to Instagram and DM me the word James Freedom, and it's just yours. It's a Google Doc that we give to our clients. So yeah.
Love it. Fantastic. And so besides going on Instagram, how else can the audience follow you, reach out to you, and get more details from you?
Yeah, socials are probably the best place. We do have our website that you mentioned, I believe, in the beginning, propelyour.com. But we're on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, all the socials at It's Justin Lund is the handle pretty much across the boards everywhere.
Love it. And we'll put all those details in the show notes. Justin, thank you so much for your time today. We could be talking for hours. There's so much great content, so many good golden nuggets there. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Good to be here.